Farming can be very challenging and stressful, and while farmers by nature are very quiet and don't share their emotions very much, Emma Cropper went down to Fairlie to talk to a very public person about a very private issue.
Hundreds of farmers crowding the Fairlie Community Hall as the winter evening sets in. They're not gathered for the usual town meeting. It's the hidden killer of the rural sector that's brought them all together. And rugby legend and depression advocate Sir John Kirwan's leading the discussion.
I had this fantastic life, I was an All Black, I was dead.
Depression is one of the largest issues facing rural communities, and it's not going away. In fact, it's growing. Farmer's daughter Pip O'Neill knows all about it. Her father lost his battle with depression just over a year ago.
Well, we saw Dad going through a whole lot. He had depression for 5 or 6 years before he passed away, and he would just go quiet and go into himself, and we knew when he was having a really tough time, but we never really talked about it because he didn't want anyone to know that he had depression.
The father of 3 ran a 5,500 hectare farm in Otago, always maintaining a staunch persona in front of the family.
Dad to me was on a pedestal, and he was my idol, and I was so proud of him, but I never told, as he did, and I'm sure he knew I loved him and was very proud of him, but we never, the relationship was we'd always talk about rugby and farming and what the racehorses were doing and all those things, rather than me saying, Dad, how are you feeling?
With an outgoing personality, it was the perfectionist within him that began to take over.
His laugh was the laugh you could hear above the crowd, and he was a real fun-loving kind of guy, and I think he just couldn't handle, it was that feeling of the weakness and that feeling of being really down, and not, we tried getting him help, but he just didn't really want to accept it.
Pip opened up to Sir John about her father's battles, but those battles are something JK's all too familiar with himself. Since 2007, Sir John's been an advocate for depression after speaking out about his own fight with the illness.
I was in incredibly bad shape, so for me the reaching out was a real necessity, and once again I just wish I had done it earlier. Because I wouldn't have had to go through what I went through, suffering alone, thinking that it was an illness and it was unique to me. So I think, for me, the reaching out part was out of desperation.
He understands the pressure on farmers to fit the stereotypical, staunch, self-reliant male image. But when it comes to depression, he believes it's misunderstood.
I think depression for me, I thought it was a weakness rather than an illness. One of the things I keep saying now is actually an illness. But because you don't treat it and because you can't see it, you really internalise it.
Farming's no longer what it used to be. Gone are the days of running a small family patch of land. Now they're multi-million-dollar businesses. And for those in charge, they face escalating compliance costs and extreme weather combined with the normal stresses of life that just don't help.
An isolation factor, things like your relationships, the finances, the weather, all sorts of things compound it. And it's never usually just one thing, but a series of things that build you to that tipping point where you feel that you can't cope anymore.
18 months ago, Federated Farmers launched this When Life's a Bitch campaign. It's in line with the recent suicide rates. Believe it or not, they're worse in the rural areas than in the urban areas. 16 per 100,000 people take their own life in the rural areas, compared to just over 11 in the urban areas.
It's been one of our best kept secrets for a very, very long time, and it's taken us a really long time to get people out and about and talking about it, and even being able to actually just broach the subject. It's been really hard work.
But farmers are no longer fighting alone. The issue is no longer a secret, and help is not far away. Local support systems are now set up to help as a first port of call when disaster strikes.
We work with farmers who are in during an adverse event or on an individual basis where farmers are in need of help. We are all from a rural background, we understand the rural issues, and we're the first line of contact really in difficult times.
Which means these guys, the farmers, the fathers, brothers and sons aren't left to battle alone on the farm, and their wives, sisters and daughters won't be left without the ones they love.
Dad was desperate to get started, and he'd sorted out all the cheese vats and equipment, and I made cheese the day after I arrived home.